Sometimes we're not confused, we're just afraid of what knowing will actually require us to do. And I learned this sitting in my living room with my then husband and our pastor. We were just about to start our very first marriage counseling session. And the pastor looked at me and asked if I thought the marriage was salvageable. And I looked at him, and without hesitation, I said, no. If you're new here, welcome, welcome. I'm Letitia, and this is Encourage Over Everything. And around here, we talk about real life, what we learn from it, and how to stay connected to ourselves through all of it. So make sure that you're subscribed because we have a lot to talk about, okay? Now, listen, let me take you back to the living room, okay? We're sitting there, and the pastor responded to me and said, well, then there's nothing else for me to do here because you've already decided. And friend, that moment will forever stick with me because there was a part of me that thought I needed help to make the decision. You know, when you have such a huge decision to make and you don't want to get it wrong, you want to do the right thing. You want to make sure that you've exhausted every single option because you know there's so much riding on this that you have to get it right. And I thought I needed somebody to help me get to my answer, but I really just needed someone to ask me plainly so that I had an opportunity to say the answer that I had been feeling all along. And when I said no, there was no fear, not a doubt, no nothing that came with it, okay? And that no was standing firm. And I felt confident in that answer. It felt like the only answer. Sometimes even the right answer can still come with a sense of ease and peace because you know that it's the right thing to do, even if the road ahead you already know is not an easy one. And that's really where I was, friend. But let's talk about what happens when you legit just don't know. You are still weighing the pros and the cons. You still got the list of the haves and the have nots going. Sometimes I don't know is real and it's valid. And other times it's really just buying us time because you know that as soon as you admit it for what it is, that you don't want to be in that relationship anymore, you're ready to leave that job, that friendship just doesn't fit right anymore. Soon as you admit that you really do want that bigger dream, or even worse, that you can't keep this same version of yourself going anymore. As soon as you get to that point, that's when it gets real because now you know that it's going to actually require you to do something because that's what clarity does. When it steps on the scene, it's not just giving you the breath of fresh air and the relief of being clear on what it is that you're facing or how you're feeling, but clarity also requires you to do something, and it's taking that action. That's the part that we really hesitate to do sometimes. So, you know what we do next? That's when we call in the committee. That's when we start asking everybody that we know to weigh in on the situation. Because if you ask just one more person, one more friend, if you call your mama one more time, you're hoping that somebody somewhere will give you a different answer. And after you have gone and did your due diligence to have your consensus completed, You are just hoping, wishing, and praying that somebody somewhere will give you an answer that does not require you to have to do the big and scary thing. Because sometimes more information, it just creates more noise. And then it separates you even further from what you already know. But truthfully, this just shows that you don't trust yourself. And maybe you have good reason for that. Maybe you feel like you've made decisions in the past and they didn't really work out. So now you don't have a good track record and don't trust yourself as much. Don't ask me how I know, okay? Or maybe you just have somebody in your life who can't wait to point out how your decision making skills are not up to par. But I know for me, that whole not wanting to get it wrong, that one always felt the heaviest because we don't want to make the wrong decision. But what if there really are no wrong decisions? What if there is just another way of getting to where you want to go? Maybe you don't want to disappoint people. Maybe you don't want to let anyone down. Maybe you're afraid that whatever this decision is, that it's going to really have a huge impact, not just for you, but on people that you love and care about. So, getting this decision right, there's a lot weighing on it, including what's weighing on you. But, friend, what if it's not about knowing exactly what's going to happen on the other side? What if it's just about you feeling confident in where you stand right now with this decision that you've already made? Because when I was sitting there in that living room, I didn't think about what the right answer was or what was going to happen after I answered the question. I just answered the question honestly. And I didn't know what was going to happen in the next moment any more than I knew what was going to happen in the next 6 months or a year or 10 years from that moment. All I knew is I really did not believe that that marriage was going to work. And I was right. And when I look back at that time, I'm so proud of myself for standing on that no and for trusting myself, even when I had no idea how things were going to turn out. And it was that moment that so many times now gives me strength and confidence and me trusting myself. And if you look back over your life, don't you have some moments where you made a decision and even years down the road, you still feel confident knowing that that was really the right decision? So, how can you take those moments where you did use your judgment and you were right and you really did trust yourself? How can you use those moments to give you confidence in yourself now? Because maybe you didn't give yourself all the credit back then, but maybe you can give yourself that credit right now. And friend, the answer does not have to feel good in order for it to be true. Because sometimes that right answer feels terrible. Sometimes things just have so many layers of complexity that even a simple answer still comes with a lot of layers to be unraveled. It's almost like Shrek comparing himself to an onion. Them onions have layers, okay? And sometimes that's just how complex things are. But just because there's a lot of complexity and just because the answer doesn't come with that instant relief, that doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing. When I was going through that divorce, I was confident in my decision that that was the right thing to do. And for me, it wasn't even the marriage itself that I was grieving. And I certainly was not grieving the person that it was with. I was grieving my dream of raising my kids in a two-parent home. I wanted them to have that experience of growing up with both of their parents married and setting the example and giving them the happy home that they deserved with their mom and their dad. And when that dream was no longer actualized, that is what I was grieving. And even though I was going through that grief, there was still a lot of relief because I also knew that I couldn't live out that dream at that particular time. I also knew that I was giving my kids an even greater example. And that was an example of trusting yourself to do what is best for yourself. And even if that means that your dream has to take on a new identity, a new shape, and look completely different than what you originally envisioned, it doesn't mean that that dream still can't come true. These are the moments where trusting yourself is an act that you are building brick by brick, honey. Okay. These are the times when you may not even feel like that's what you're doing in the moment, but this comes back to trusting in yourself that even if you don't know how it's going to work out, even if you don't know if your dream is still going to come true, because even at that time, I had to believe that even though the dream didn't come true this time, it didn't mean that that dream was never meant to come true. It just meant that it was going to look differently than it did. Sometimes we mistake grief as evidence that we made the wrong decision, and that is just not the case. Grief just comes with it. When you have to end a relationship or that job ends and now you have to go find a new one. Anytime that you are going through some kind of a life event and it was not because this was on your vision board to do, grief just comes with it. We don't just experience grief because someone passes away. Anytime that you are going through big life changes, transitions, shifts, especially when it's not because this was what you selected from the menu, grief just goes hand in hand with it. So don't let that be evidence that you made the wrong decision. Just know that grief is just a part of it. So, what if you stopped asking, what should I do? And you started asking yourself, what do you already know? Because, friend, what do you know about that relationship? What do you know about that job? What do you already know about that boundary that you need to set that somebody keeps stepping over as if it don't exist? Because you do know the answer. And if you haven't been able to hear the answer yet, maybe you just haven't given yourself the time and the space to actually be still and be quiet enough to hear it come through. So, ask yourself that question, friend. Journal about that. That is a great one to journal on. And remember, no shade, no shame, and no judgment. This is a judge free zone. This is just you finally giving yourself the time and the space to acknowledge what you already know. Now, friend, I thought that I was just sitting down for a marriage counseling session. I had no idea that I was sitting smack dab in a life defining moment of clarity. One question would lead to one answer that would completely change the direction of my life. And it was not because I knew exactly what was going to happen afterward. It was because in that moment, I knew that I could no longer pretend that I could stay there. I knew I couldn't stay there. There was just no way. So, if something within this struck something for you, friend, definitely fill me in and let me know in the comments. You don't have to tell me all your business, but definitely tell me what moment in your life are you ready to trust yourself with? Mm, I cannot wait to hear, friend, what you got going on, okay? I will meet you in the comments and I'll see you in the next video. And until next time, friend, keep coming back to yourself.